Okay, here's the second installment of the video lecture for Scott High School on gender. This was the last slide that we saw. We've been talking about the idea of gender, how it is socially constructed, how we feel like we kind of have to fall into these specific roles as men and women. We're going to keep talking about this idea. We're also going to start talking about how this varies from culture to culture, from place to place. So, the question I asked at the end of the last PowerPoint presentation, are men and women treated differently based upon their gender or sex? I'm going to submit to you the answer to that is just absolutely yes. You guys think about the question and tell me if you think I'm wrong. Email me or think to yourself. I'll give you an example. Woman walks into a bar. Rachel Dratch is a comedian. She's worked on Saturday Night Live. Very funny. And I have a story that I'll try to make it brief. True story. My wife is also a school teacher, and they were having a Christmas party where she teaches at her school. It happened to be in this restaurant that was kind of like half restaurant, half bar. And she was permitted to bring her spouse, which was me, of course. So we go into the bar, and I'm sitting around, kind of bored, and I noticed that we're in the restaurant part. And then I noticed around the corner there are TVs, the soft glow of television. So I wander over, and it's football, bowl season. I noticed that there are probably 6 or 7 football games on. So I'm like, I found my place. I'm going to hang out right here for a minute. Then the sociologist in me kind of kicked in. I'm looking around. I'm toward the back of the bar. There are all men in this bar, probably 25 men. And this woman, literally, I'll go back to the slide, walks into the bar. Attractive female by society standards. Walks into the bar. She has a seat. And she strikes a very specific pose. Like she puts her hand on her head, kind of like on the side of her cheek, like, oh, I've had a long day. You can tell she's had a bad day. She's tired, and she just wants a drink. So she orders a drink, and I could see that there were 5 men huddled like football players in a huddle in the corner of the restaurant, and I could hear them whisper, you go try it, you go try it. No, you go ask her. I'm thinking, oh, this ought to be good. So she's sitting there minding her own business. The first guy wanders over and delivers a horrifically awful pickup line that I can't repeat on this video. Just awful. So she very calmly looks at him and says, you can leave now. I'm not interested. I appreciate what you're doing, but I just want to be left alone. So he tucks his tail, puts his head down, walks back to the huddle. Second guy walks over. This is a true story. And delivers the following pickup line. Doesn't know her, but the first thing he says to her is something to the effect of, are your feet tired? Because you've been running through my mind all day. And she very quickly looks at him and says, how can that be? I don't even know you. How could you be running through... how could I be running through your mind if you're just meeting me? So she shoots him down. So he goes back to the huddle. Third guy tries nothing. And finally the last guy goes over. And before he can even open his mouth, she says, look, I just want to be left alone. I'm just here to have a drink. I don't want to be bothered. And the man says to her, well, you're at a bar. If you don't want to hook up, we'll call it hook up, okay? That's not what he said, but you get the idea. If you don't want to hook up with the guy, then why are you even here? Why are you even at a bar? And then she gets mad and right out of a movie, like a scene out of a movie, she throws her drink in his face, storms out. That's the end of that. I'm thinking, wow, okay, there's a lot going on with gender there. This idea or expectation that a woman can't go into a bar unless she's looking for sex, is that assumption built in? I know you guys aren't 21. Hopefully you're not drinking at bars yet. So I thought, okay, at this point there are men and women in the bar. So I thought, what would happen if I went and sat at the bar as a man and strike the same pose? Would a bunch of women come and hit on me and deliver really awful pickup lines? No, I sat there 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, not a sniff, nothing. Now obviously I'm not trying to get picked up. I'm married, very happily married, but I was doing a sociological experiment to see if any woman would come over and try to talk to me. Did not happen. So why is that? Are women just less inclined to solicit or to go after, we'll call them extracurricular possibilities in public, in bars? Or do women not have to act that way? Or are they socialized that it's not appropriate to do that? It's not okay. Girls, I would ask you in class, is it okay for you to ask a guy out on a date, to make the first move, to ask him to prom? Would it be okay for you to ask a man to marry you, ladies? And a lot of women would say no, that's the man's role. It's the man's job to take charge and to make the first move. Well, these are things we've been taught. These are not absolutely biologically determined ways of thinking or behaving. Society has kind of taught us this, and we kind of fall in line with that. Now, gender roles are attitudes and activities that a society links to each sex. And again, every society does this a little differently. Some more ideas about gender stereotypes here. I thought this was really funny. I found this online and last semester when I was teaching this unit. These are stereotypes. They're not obviously necessarily true, but they're funny. The female brain, you see you've got the chocolate part of the brain, binges and cravings, fantasy, maternal urges and weddings, gossip lobe, the shopping lobe, and then the male brain you have, of course, sex, which is the biggest part, the beer lobe, the power tools lobe, the ball sports lobe. Now these are simplifications and they are stereotypes. Certainly there are some women who like sports, who are fixated on computers, who drink beer, and certainly there are some men who like to shop, who like musicals and sitcoms. So again, these are sort of, simplifications. But back to the idea of gender roles, we are assigned these roles, these activities. As men, we're supposed to play sports. We're supposed to be tough. We're supposed to drive trucks and wear flannel, and we're supposed to be manly men. Ladies, you're supposed to be pretty, to be dainty, to be nurturing. And you might think, well, it's not really that way anymore, Mr. Dean, but it kind of is still that way. In some parts of this country, and there's still more of that traditional stereotypical gender role thinking than you might think. We've come a long way, but there's still a lot of that there. So now we get into the idea of the stereotypical male and female gender roles. We talk about being masculine. We have very specific ideas in images that the media puts out there. Big, strong, muscles. The idea of masculinity. Some of the characteristics, the stereotypical characteristics of the male gender stereotype guys, we're supposed to be strong, unemotional, providers, macho, physical, independent, dominant. Are we born this way? Not as much. Are we taught that we have to be this way? Pretty much. And if you don't fall into this box, gentlemen, if you're not strong, if maybe you're more emotional, maybe you're dependent, then there are ramifications for that. And it's the same thing for women. Women are taught to be weak, to be nurturing, caregiving, raising children, domestic, the softer sex. And if you don't fall into that stereotypical image, then you're considered to be inappropriate. There's something wrong with you. You're a butch. You're a dyke. You're a lesbian. You're whatever. And the same with men. Guys who are musically inclined or who maybe are not physically strong. Maybe they have more feminine characteristics. They're called names like queer or fag, or everybody assumes that these guys are gay somehow. So we even take it a step further and we assign sexual orientation to decide people's sexual orientation based on how feminine or masculine they present, which is really kind of preposterous. But that's kind of how it works within our society. Some images here of gender from the media. These are from like the 60s and the 70s. You have the idea here that the man is the king of his castle. This excerpt here is from a children's book that's actually talking about roles for men and women. Boys are football players. Girls are cheerleaders. Boys are pilots. Girls are stewardesses. So the idea here is that the men take charge. They do the real work. And the women are just there to cheer on for the guys and to sort of support and serve them. You mean a woman can open it? Wow, that's kind of a slap in the face to you ladies, isn't it? See, even a woman can open this ketchup bottle. And then, of course, you have some more ideas of gender stereotyping. I'm a big fan of Brett Favre. He was a great quarterback. He's sort of the prototypical man's man in today's society. He wears Wrangler jeans. He was a quarterback. He took a beating when he played 20 years in the NFL. He drives a truck. So we still have some of these images that are alive and well. Girls who want to play sports, especially football. You can see the saying there, it's a man's game. It's not a woman's game. Well, there are a lot of females who play football and can play football and do it very well. So we'll go ahead and call that the end of part 2 for this lecture. Thanks.